Right, so moments ago, President Trump and South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, sparring over Trump's claims of genocide in that country. It comes as the U.S. has accepted a group of white Afrikaners, giving them refugee status and then fast-tracking their citizenship. So let's break down some of what we just heard. I'd like to welcome in former State Department official and former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor, David Tafuri, who is currently right now in Ukraine. So, David, thank you so much for joining us right now. We listened in there more than an hour of us, being given this access into the Oval Office. And today's meeting, we know, is supposed to really focus on trade. But how much do you think, President Trump's allegations of white genocide, the fact that he had that video ready, dim the lights and hit play, how much do you think that impacts what is happening right now behind closed doors?
Well, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I can't emphasize enough how unusual this meeting was. It's just so different from how meetings go usually when it's two heads of state. Normally, it's just the two heads of state that speak to each other. Normally, if they have disagreements, those are done behind closed doors. In this case, it was on TV for everyone to see. At times, the two presidents were talking across each other. President Trump was calling on people in the crowd, golfers and others, to make comments. But I think President Ramaphosa did a pretty good job of not disrespecting President Trump, not being too argumentative with President Trump, but pushing back on the assertion that there is a genocide. And he clearly brought with him some aides and supporters and people from his government to help him make that case. At one point, he even called on the head of the Afrikaner Party, who was there and who is the Minister of Agriculture in the president's cabinet. And he pushed back a little bit on the idea that there's a genocide. One of the things that seems to be part of the misunderstanding here is South Africa has a very high crime rate. It's out of control. But not all of that crime, as the President Ramaphosa was trying to say, and so were some of the others who were his supporters in the room, not all of that crime is genocide. Not all of that crime relates to efforts to push white farmers out. And President Trump seems insistent on his viewpoint that there is a genocide, that Afrikaners are being persecuted against. He wasn't armed with statistics on that. If you look at the statistics, it's actually quite low, the number of people who have been killed. Any deaths, obviously, are wrong and tragic and need to be corrected. But the number of deaths on farms from people being pushed out of farms is minuscule compared to the very high number of deaths that comes from just common crime. And as the president pointed out, many of the victims of those crimes are actually the blacks inside South Africa. So I think actually the president and South Africa probably made progress with President Trump because they were able to make their case to him. But it was such an unusual and unorthodox way to do it, with people being called on in the room and people talking across each other.
Yeah, I mean, we also heard that example given that, older black women are regularly being repeatedly raped and killed as well. So, as you said, I mean, crime is just overall a major problem there in South Africa.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.